Good morning. I'm Beth Parsons with Retail Alliance. I usually run the Loss Prevention Task Force, or group as we call it now. But last year, after February, we had to not have it in person anymore due to COVID, but we decided to have it this year as part of our Strive program with Zoom. Also with us this morning is Sarah Pisco with Prince Books. She is director on our board of directors, and she is chairman of the Loss Prevention Task Force Group. So I want to thank you for coming. We will have another one the fourth Tuesday next month. So I hope you can enjoy us. Enjoy it. I hope you can join us. Thank you. Okay, well, I hope you enjoy listening to Jim Clark with State Farm. Thank you.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to spend some time talking with you this morning about risk prevention and some things that you should consider as it relates to your small business and losses. I know with COVID-19, there's been a number of things that you've had to consider as it relates to losses and just the financial aspects of your business. So I hope that this presentation will be something that will be meaningful to you. And certainly as I go through this, if you've got questions, don't hesitate to interrupt. I'll have a time for questions at the very end of my presentation. But certainly if there's something that you'd like for me to alliterate on, I'd be happy to stop and do that. Let me share my screen so that you can see my presentation. And just let me know that you can see my presentation and I'll go ahead and begin here. We good?
Everything looks good.
All right, perfect. All right, great. I am going to spend some time this morning talking about risk prevention and insurance for the small business owner. I'll just give you a little bit of introduction about myself and my experience with State Farm and prior to State Farm. And then we'll talk through kind of the nitty gritty of the things that I think as a small business owner, you need to be thinking about, ways that you can mitigate risk and loss in your own business. And then we'll talk a little bit about the type of coverages that you should have. I think as I look at small business owners and our interaction, to me, that's probably one of the most important things is just to make sure that the coverages that you have fit your specific type of business. And so we'll talk about all the different types of coverages that you can have. And then of course, it's up to you and your agent to really sit down and figure out which ones are applicable. And then we'll have, as I said, we'll have some time for question and answer at the end. But just to tell you a little bit about me, I am a native of Atlanta, Georgia. And as my career progressed, I am a CPA by trade and practiced for a large firm for a number of years. I worked in banking for a while. And then I spent about 10 years working in the restaurant industry. I worked for McDonald's on the corporate side in South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, then was in Florida for a period of time. And then as many of you, I made a decision that I'd had enough of the corporate world and it was time to do something for myself. I thought that would always be owning a restaurant. And then when I realized, especially on the fast food side, that many of them are open 24 hours a day and you have 100+ employees, I decided that probably wasn't what I wanted to do the rest of my life. And I had opportunity to come back to this area and open up a State Farm agency. My office is in Norfolk, and so we've been doing this now for 16 years. We are highly involved on personal lines, whether that's auto, home, life, disability, and then on the commercial side, we have a significant client base. Most all of those I would consider to be small businesses of 100 employees or less. And we are highly involved in probably the leading agent with State Farm in this market area as it relates to financial services. And we do a lot of work with small businesses with simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, 401k plans, and just general investing for a number of small business owners. So I think the experience that we have as an agency, I think for a small business owner lends itself very well. And we really pride ourselves on just trying to educate, both on the personal side and the small business side, our clients and making sure that we're setting them up for success. I have 3 children. I have a son who is just recently graduated from college. And then I have a son who is a senior in high school this year and a son who is a senior in college. So we're living the senior year of COVID on a lot of different facets, and it's certainly been an unusual year for them. But have a wife I've been married to for 26 years. So just some personal information about me. And let's hop on into talking about the relationship with a risk advisor. As I think about a small business person and risk and how you should mitigate that, I contrast that to what you would probably see in most major corporations. Most major corporations are going to have an actual risk management department. And that department, whether it's housed in the finance area or it's housed in a legal area or a safety area, they're tasked with managing all the different risks that might exist for that business. And those risks fall in a lot of different areas. It could be economic risk and really the exterior market forces that impact that business. And certainly with COVID-19, I think all of us to some degree have experienced what that feels like. It could be risk with compliance. It could be risk issues with fraud, financial risk. A huge risk that all of us, I think, are concerned about in our business is reputation risk. And then there's operational risk. So in a very large corporation, you're going to have a specific department and a specific group of people that are tasked with doing that. Unfortunately, as a small business owner, the majority of us don't have the resources to house someone internally to help us manage all those different type of risk that exist in our small business. So this is where I think an insurance agent as your risk advisor can be really a very, very key partner with you in your business to help you protect what you have spent for some of you many, many years trying to build. And so that's why I would encourage you as you evaluate your needs as a business and your needs in the area of risk, that you have a partnership with a local agent who can really help guide you. As I did some research for this presentation, one of the things that I noted is about 40% of small business insurance is purchased online. And there's certainly nothing wrong with purchasing insurance or other coverages online, but I think when you don't have that relationship with an agent, you really, really miss having a partner that can help guide you through some things that are pretty specific to your business. I think the other thing that your insurance agent can do as a risk advisor is just to make sure that the coverages that you have match the ever-changing needs of your business. One size does not fit all. And your insurance agent as your risk advisor should really be involved in understanding the types of things that you do in your business. They should spend time at your physical location if you have one, you're not operating out of your home, seeing your business, understanding what you do. If you've got multiple locations, they should have been at all of those. And so again, I think that's the benefit of the relationship of having that local insurance agent. And I would encourage you as you evaluate an agent to really look for someone who displays honesty, professionalism, industry expertise, timely response. I have gotten clients over the years that have indicated to me that, it takes days for them to get in touch with their insurance agent and for that person to respond. And that relationship should not function like that. You should be able to get in touch with your agent. All of our customers have my cell phone. I live off of it daily with text and messages, and that should be the type of relationship that you have, because when things change in your business, when you have a claim that arises, you need to have someone that can consult you, someone that can walk you through what the processes are. And again, I would encourage you to develop that relationship with your local advisor. And then one of the things that we attempt to do, and I would encourage you with your insurance agent to do this annually, is to sit down and talk about what has changed in your business. Have you grown? Have you shrunk? Have you added additional locations? Have you added different business lines? Are there different ways that you're doing things in your business? your insurance agent should be able to know those things, understand those things, and then really advise you as to how you should move forward with your coverages that would be applicable to what you're doing. And then one of the things I didn't note on here, but it is probably as significant as any of the things that I've listed, is just someone that will help you when you have a claim. 4 out of 10 business owners file a claim in their first 10 years of operation. And that's a pretty significant number. And so you need someone that can help guide you, number one, to help you evaluate the loss that you have, whether or not it is a claim. I think people have insurance coverages, but there's certainly, we've seen as we interact with small business people, and really even on the personal line side of our business, people seem to be hesitant to file a claim because they're concerned about how it will impact their future coverage, how it might impact a deductible and a change with a deductible in the future. And so you need a local agent that can advise you, if you file that claim, how will it impact you in the future? Secondly, is it a covered claim? Is the thing that you're dealing with, is it something that your policy covers? How will that impact you? How can you find contractors if it's a physical damage issue? And so having someone local with multiple contacts, I think it just provides this whole concept of having a risk advisor that can really help you move your business forward and protect, as I said, the things that you have worked extremely hard to build, whether that's your reputation or your business, or clearly the finances that are generated by your business. Let's talk a little bit about mitigating risk and how you can prevent loss inside your business in a variety of areas. And I'm going to talk about probably the most common risk that exists and some of the things that you can do as a small business owner to protect yourself against loss. I looked at, within State Farm, the top 10 property and liability claims that we had in the last 12 months. And let me just highlight these things before I go through these risks. So most common is burglary and theft. About 20% of our claims came from that area. Water and freezing damage, about 15%. Certainly we live in a marketplace where the temperature is a little bit more moderate, so that's not as significant where we live here. But certainly, the water issue is something that we see very often in this marketplace. Wind and hail damage, about 15% of our claims came from there. Fire, about 10%. Customer slip and fall, about 10%. And then just a myriad of other small things that we would lump into those categories. How about what the most costly types of claims? Most costly types of claims that we had in the last 12 months, reputational harm, vehicle accidents. On average, vehicle accidents cost State Farm about $45,000 as it relates to small business owners. Fire losses, product liability, customer injury or damage, wind and hail. And believe it or not, customer slip and falls cost on average for an insurance company about $20,000 per claim. And so, again, as we look at these common risks and how to prevent them, let me just walk through some of these different categories and highlight some of the things I think that causes the claims, and then maybe some things that you can do as a small business owner to help prevent some of those things. First of all, fire. Certainly, fire can cause property damage to equipment, to materials, to your structure. There can be injury to employees and customers. One of the things that we often look at when we rate a policy and we determine premium and we go out to a physical location, we're going to look and see, are there sprinkler systems? Are there smoke detectors, extinguishers? What type of equipment is being used? Does the equipment look like it's in good operating condition? Are there electrical issues? And one of the tips that we always encourage small business owners to consider is, do you have an established fire plan, and are your employees trained on that fire plan and how they would respond to it if in your business at one moment a fire occurred. Slip and falls. Slip and falls, as I said, can be a very costly injury. It can cause injury to employees, and that tends to fall a little bit more in the workers' comp category, certainly with customers. And so if you have a physical location where you have customers that are coming in and day out, some of the things that I look for as I come out and evaluate what we would do in writing your coverage, we're going to look at, do you have adequate lighting in your parking lot? What do your sidewalks look like? How are your stairways? Are they in good repair? Do you have areas where water can accumulate? Do you have torn pieces of flooring? Again, snow and ice in our area is not as significant as it would be further up north, but do you have a plan in place that if there was snow and ice, how would you address that? What does your parking lot look like as it relates to potholes? Some of the tips that we encourage small business owners to consider is, do you have emergency numbers posted for management to get access to? Do you have a stocked first aid kit? Are you good at keeping a record of all these incidents? So if somebody walks into your business and they said, hey, I slipped in the parking lot, or I slipped when I came in this morning, how are you going to address that? How are you going to record that? We would encourage you to make very detailed records. We would encourage you not to admit any liability, but we would encourage you as well to take photos, immediately report that claim to your agent so that we can help you evaluate, how to move forward. And even in some situations, we may even encourage you to get an attorney involved because of the significance of a claim. Employee theft. I know even in my own small business, I've had to deal with this. I can think back to an employee that I had about 5 or 6 years ago that we keep a small supply of postage in our office that's not metered. And I noticed it just continually shrunk. And I had an employee internally that felt like it was okay to send out their monthly bills using our postage. Obviously that didn't cost me a lot of money. But certainly from an employee standpoint, it was taking an asset of our business. Employee theft can be a very, very costly crime. And unfortunately, by the time it is often identified, it can be significant dollars, and it can be a significant hit to the reputation of your business, as well as some of these things make their way out into the public and make their way out into news sources, et cetera. And so it can be something very, very small. It can be something very, very significant, like bookkeeping fraud. And I think we've all seen in the news, situations where an employee has worked for a business for 10, 15, 20 years. And one day the owner discovers with the accountant that this person has been taking dollars after dollars after dollars, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that they end up losing, and they end up having to prosecute this person. How do we prevent that? Well, the obvious is try to hire honest people, but despite our best efforts, sometimes, we find out that people are not as we thought. Be very detailed in your applications and your hiring process. Make sure you're checking references. It surprises me the number of small business owners that I interact with that never check a reference of a prior employer to understand why someone was terminated or why they left that position. Conduct interviews. Do a criminal background and a credit check. Typically for $40 to $50, you can accomplish some of those things, and it will just give you a peace of mind with regards to the person that you're putting on your payroll, that they're not going to be someone who would be inclined to commit fraud, or they don't have a history of doing that. Some of the tips that we encourage our small business owners to consider is creating internal controls, separating duties as much as you can. And I realize sometimes in small businesses where you may only have 1 employee, 2 employees, 3 employees, that separating duties, it can be a very difficult thing to do. Requiring multiple signatures on payments that are going out. having camera systems in place in your office, doing regular inventories. You know, one of the things that I've always encouraged business owners who employ people is to force employees to take a week of vacation at a time. One of the things that those who commit fraud, as you go back and look, is that they never left the business for a very long period of time. So it was very easy for them to continue to cover their tracks and continue to commit something like bookkeeping fraud. You make someone take a week of vacation and they're out of the office for 5, 6, 7 days, some of these things will begin to come to light. It'll be very hard for that employee to continue to hide those things that they're doing. Robbery. You own a retail location. I think that's something that, especially if you handle cash of any nature, it's something that you're always concerned about. And then, of course, with your inventory, safety is clearly more important than money or inventory. Prevention. How do we prevent robbery from occurring? Limit the amount of cash by making deposits regularly throughout your day. Video surveillance, panic buttons. Some of you that have retail locations, you may use services like ADT. And if you do, your insurance company most likely will give you a discount for doing that. But there's other systems as well that are often less costly that you can purchase at box retailers like Home Depot or Lowe's or Sam's, Best Buy. And many times the insurance company will honor those as security systems as well. But make sure you have the ability for your employees to quickly be able to hit a panic button and have police out. I had a situation, I used to have an office downtown, and I had a situation about 7 or 8 years ago where I had an employee come to the office very, very early in the morning. There was a homeless gentleman that was sitting on the steps near our office who she interacted with. And before she could get the door locked, he stepped into the office. And before she could even make herself get access to a panic button of some nature, he physically harassed her. And she tried to confront him, and he darted out of the office before we could even get the police involved. So those types of things happen, especially if you're in a setting where you are downtown, where you're near bus stations or where people congregate. It's just something that you have to be very, very aware of. If you've got a business where you don't have a lot of employees, but there are customers that come in and out, and you may have one of your employees in the back of the office, have a door buzzer or an intercom or something so that you know when someone has come into the office. And certainly we would encourage you to make sure your lighting is good as well. And I just would encourage you in this area, in a day like today where many people do carry firearms, to make sure your employees are trained on what your internal policy is as far as can they even have a firearm in your office, how they need to handle that situation. Sometimes we've seen employees who attempt to take over the situation themselves, and it really turns into, in some situations, some very ugly messes. And we've even seen situations where there's been loss of life because an employee veered off the plan that was in place to handle these types of issues. So certainly something to be very aware of. Natural disasters. Natural disasters can be very, very significant. 25% of businesses don't open again after a major disaster. And as you look across the country, I think even last night there were some tornadoes that occurred in certain parts of the country. And of course, we all know what's going on in California with these fires that continue. Natural disasters can be significant. In our marketplace, natural disasters, I think of things that nature can do. Typically water issues is something that we experience here. You can't prevent those disasters from occurring. You cannot stop those things, but you certainly can have a plan in place to help you recover from them. And so one of the things that we always will be willing to do, and I think an agent who is serving as your risk advisor should be willing to help you put together a plan to help you deal for natural disasters that could occur in your geographic area. Safety, of course, of your on-site employees and visitors are a priority, whether that's talking about evacuation routes or emergency lighting or shelters, or if you've got a number of employees conducting emergency training exercises. Those are types of things too, I think, that filter back to what we just talked about with robbery and how you would handle those. One of the things that that we've seen as it relates to natural disasters and then even in area of robbery and or rioting, I think of the rioting that has occurred in various places in our country this year, and businesses that have been attacked. But you know, we've been fortunate in our area, we haven't seen that, but just making sure you have a plan that you secure your assets if you did have a natural disaster, maintaining a comprehensive, up-to-date inventory of your items that you have. If you file a claim with an insurance company, there's no way I, as your agent, am going to be able to come up with a list of what you lost. I am 100% reliant on you. So I encourage you, take pictures periodically of your office. If you have warehouse space where you have inventory, if you're producing items, if you've got supplies, make sure you have pictures of those stored on your cell phone so that if you do have to file a claim, you have something that you can go back to that will help you jog your memory of what you've lost. Think about places that if you had a natural disaster where you may temporarily be able to relocate. Coverages within business policies help, office costs, institute backup procedures for your software. And then, I hope as small business people, if you have your own location, that you have contacts with contractors that you can easily get to help you, whether it's board up your property or fix issues. And that's one of the things I think that your insurance agent as your risk advisor can be very, very helpful with. We deal with claims constantly. I know in our office, we have a list of contractors that we refer our customers to frequently. And those contractors, because of their relationship with us, are very, very good about responding quickly to the situation. And so, again, that's the way that your insurance agent as your risk advisor should be able to help you as a small business owner. Again, some of the things I just mentioned as it relates to a list of contractors and key suppliers and relocating and having a financial plan in place to cover your payroll expenses and your obligations. So we'll talk about, when I get into the coverages in just a minute, that in business policies, there are coverages that help you if you cannot operate because of disasters, because of fires, because of water damage, et cetera. Most business policies have loss income clauses in there that will help you offset those things. Choosing proper coverages. You think about all these losses and all these things that are of a concern to you as a business owner. Let's talk about all the coverages that exist. And I'm going to go through 3 or 4 slides here that will highlight the types of coverages that you need to think about. And when you look at this list, it can really be overwhelming. It's like, man, which of these things do I opt into? Which of these things do I opt out of? Are some of these things automatically included in my business policy? How much coverage do I need? And again, that's where I would encourage you to rely on the advice of your agent to help you assess which of these coverages should fit and how much of the coverage you should have. As I look at retail business insurance, there's a number of things, and I won't talk about all of these in a lot of detail, but certainly your property. Whether you lease or you own a building, you've probably made improvements. Obviously, if you've leased the building, you've got contents in there, you've got equipment. A retail business insurance policy is designed to help you cover that property. You want to make sure you have enough coverage. You don't need more than what you need. I've seen policies that we've taken over where It's a very small business, and the amount of business property they have insured is just astronomical, and they're paying a very high rate for that. But we want to make sure that you have enough coverage that you do, if you do have a loss as it relates to your property, that you are covered. The insurance policy will only pay up to the amount that's stated in that policy. So if in your policy, you only have 25,000, 30,000, 50,000 of coverage, it does not matter if you have $100,000 of items that you've lost. It's only going to pay up to that stated amount. And as most of these policies are replacement cost coverage, it adds up very, very quickly when we see loss. Liability, of course, liability is one of the, I think, one of the most significant coverages, and it's something that I see business owners often try to skimp on as it relates to coverage. A standard business policy for most insurance companies is either going to provide you $100,000 of liability coverage or $300,000. But you can move up to $500,000 or $1 million in liability coverage for very, very minimal cost. And I just encourage you, in the world that we live in today, where it's very, very easy for people to quickly run to an attorney and quickly try to file a suit, quickly try to damage your reputation in social media, make sure that in the area of liability, that it's not something that you believe less is more. Property and liability, those two things are often covered under a business owner's policy, which you might hear referred to sometimes as a BOP. So a business owner's policy allows property and liability coverage to be combined on one policy to really help reduce the cost of that policy versus you trying to insure those things separately. And in that business owner's policy, many of these other things, which I'm going to talk about, are often included as additional coverages, or there's something that you can opt into. Equipment breakdown, providing coverage for damage to losses caused by the breakdown of covered equipment. If you run a business where you are heavily reliant on a machine, I think of clients that I have that have printers that some of these things cost $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 for these very, very high-tech printers. Man, when that thing goes down, their business is just hosed. And so sometimes to get those repairs done, it can be days to get parts in, especially if it's an older piece of equipment. Make sure your policy, if you have equipment that you're readily dependent upon to create products or create items, make sure that your coverage is sufficient enough to protect you. Loss of income. Loss of income covers the loss of your business caused by a suspension of operations due to a covered loss. That can be anything from loss of power over an extended period of time. That can be from damages that we talked about from a riot. It could be physical damage from a fire. Make sure that your policy protects you for loss of income, as that obviously is significant to your livelihood. It's significant to you being able to take care of your employees as well. We talked earlier about the loss of employee dishonesty. And so you want to make sure that your policy as well covers losses that you might incur from employees who unfortunately take advantage of you. Computer property, this is a kind of an older coverage, but we still see this in most business owners' policies, but it provides you coverage with regards to your computers and the equipment that you use in your operations. At one point in time, as we know, years and years ago, this was probably a much more significant coverage because the cost of computer equipment was just astronomical. Today, as you know, most of us are operating off laptops that run $500 or $600. So, but it's still something that is a coverage that is often provided. For many of you that have retail business, signs are something that are extremely expensive, and so you want to make sure that you're covered for accidental losses that occurs. We see a lot of vandalism that occurs that requires this coverage to be kicked in. Brands and labels. That provides coverage for you for the cost to remove your branding or your label off of something that has been damaged. You do not want, if you're producing products, you do not want your products that are damaged or are salvage value out there floating around for people to use because of liability issues or for just clearly for your reputation. And so an insurance policy should provide coverage for you to have those signs or those labels removed. I remember back in my days of working for McDonald's, you rarely see a McDonald's restaurant close, but when you do, we were just religious about making sure signage was immediately taken off those buildings so that the brand did not look as if it was suffering. So you just want to make sure you don't have damaged goods that can be traced back to you floating around. Utility interruption of loss. Not only can you have physical damage that would cause you to lose income, but we all have been through situations where we have lost our ability to operate because of electricity being shut down. You know, I think about snow and ice issues and electricity being shut down for days, repairs not being able to be made, or if there was a gas line issue that caused you to not be able to operate in your retail location, you want to make sure your policy covers that as well. Data compromise and identity restoration. Clearly, if you maintain files that have a significant amount of customer data, whether that's data that has private information such as social security numbers or credit card numbers, you want to make sure, number one, you have plans in place to make sure those things are secure within your office environment. But number two, that if you did have a breach of data, that you had a plan in place to help you be able to immediately react to that, both from a protection standpoint and a reputation standpoint, but also if you had a loss that was incurred by that, or it cost you money to deal with that, whether it's hiring a public relations firm or an attorney to help you work through that, you want to make sure your policy offsets those costs. Ordinances of law. You know, I think about, for instance, the city of Norfolk. You may be operating, or you may own a building that you operate a business in. That building incurs damage due to a fire. And then because that building or house that you're operating in is 40, 50 years old, when you rebuild that, you're required to make some significant changes to your building to keep up with current construction standards, or maybe just current community standards. You want to make sure your policy helps you offset those costs. Hired autos, that is a liability issue that helps you protect yourself for liability issues that could result from vehicles being used in your business that you do not own. So that could be your employees using their own vehicles. It could be you renting a U-Haul truck, a Penske truck. It could be any vehicle that you as a business would rent or a business would use that does not belong to you specifically as the owner. These are just some other broad categories of insurance for entrepreneurs, small business people. You know, vehicle insurance. Make sure that your insurance for your own car, if you use your car within your business, is adequately categorized. If you use your vehicle within your business, it really should be rated as business class. There's some extra protections that will be afforded to you for doing that. Some of you may have businesses where you have maybe a fleet of vehicles, box trucks or trailers if you're on the construction side. Workers' compensation. Workers' compensation in the Commonwealth of Virginia is required if you have more than 2 employees. It can be a very inexpensive coverage, but a very important coverage for you to protect your employees for injuries that could occur in their course of employment with you. Professional insurance, we see this as an area that protects individuals for negligence or errors or omissions. I think about real estate agents, veterinarians, doctors, attorneys, architects, you know, anyone who is considered to be in a professional category. That's something that we're going to look at and make sure that they have enough coverage to protect them. In the world that we operate in today, many people have moved out of locations where they have an office, and they're now, operating an in-home business. And so make sure your business insurance policy provides you the adequate protection to protect your business equipment and the liability that you still have as a business owner, even if you're operating in your home. One of the things that we will often talk about with business owners that is something that really is not given a lot of consideration, but I think in the area of COVID-19, we have seen this be a much more significant need, and that's key employee coverage. And when I talk about key employee coverage, I'm talking about life insurance for key employees to a business. In COVID-19, where there have been significant deaths, if you've got a very, very key employee or a family member that's involved in your business, that if for whatever reason they were no longer with us, that would have a significant impact on your ability to operate because of the relationships that they have with your customers, because of the knowledge that they have of your business. We often encourage employers to look at their key employees or themselves as the key business owner and ensuring their life to make sure that there is funds provided if something happened to them. And we see this a lot too in partnership agreements. So you have a partnership with another individual, and let's say that individual passes away. How is their partnership interest bought out? Do you want to now become a partner with that person's spouse? Probably not. So how do you provide funds to make sure that you're able to buy out that partnership and maintain control of that entity? We often structure life insurance policies to do that, and we look at and do that in conjunction with buy-sell agreements. Health insurance, of course, disability insurance, and disability insurance is one of these things I see overlooked frequently as you're trying to manage your limited dollars to take care of all your insurance needs. That's one that we see, unfortunately, a skip, but it's extremely important for you to be able to protect you and your income if you have the inability to perform your current job duties. I had a dentist a few years ago that developed significant carpal tunnel syndrome in his hands, and was not, you looked at him, you'd think he was perfectly fine. He could certainly go in the office every day, but he could not do his dental procedures as he was doing them before. And so disability insurance was able to provide him income for the loss of his job duty. So I know I've thrown a lot of information. I wanted to try to keep that to about 30 or 40 minutes, and I've thrown a lot of information to you this morning. But really my goal was to make sure that as a advisor, whether it's myself or someone that you work with, you understand the significance of having someone who can help you assess your risk, look at the things that are going on in your business, looking at the changes that are occurring, and put you in a position where you can mitigate risk, you can mitigate loss in your business. And so I hope that in all those things, although it gave you a lot of information, to help you consider those things. Is there anything that I can answer about any segment of what I talked about this morning, or just insurance in general?
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, I don't know if y'all can hear me. If you haven't, okay, you're in your office and there's a wet area, and you have sent out an email and you've told all the employees that there was a spill, it's wet, you put a cone out, everybody who has walked by, you've told them, and then you still have someone who walks by really fast and falls and hurts their knee. Would we be liable for that?
You could be liable, because even if you did all those things and everyone tried their best to stay away from that water, and for whatever reason somebody slipped, there could be some liability issues there, and those things get a little complicated, and that's where we have to get attorneys involved. But that's why you want to make sure from a liability standpoint and a workers' comp standpoint that you do have enough coverage for all these extraneous things that could occur, because there are situations sometimes where I don't think there's going to be coverage extended, and coverage is extended for those things. So that's probably a little bit more of a legal question, but it stresses, I think, the importance of making sure that you have enough coverage that if those things turn into suits, claims, et cetera, you can protect yourself.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I'll make sure that I do is get you my PowerPoint presentation in a PDF format so that you can have it. If you have a relationship with your, read through it. If you've got a relationship with an agent, just make sure that that agent is providing you all the things I talked about today. Make sure you're utilizing that agent, and make sure that agent is responsive to what your needs are, and that you have a set process of meeting with them on a continual basis to make sure they understand what's going on in your business. If we can be of a help to you, my purpose today is to educate. My purpose is not to try to solicit business, but if we can help in any way evaluating what you currently have, I am more than happy to do that. And I would be upfront and honest with you that what you have is great, or you have some holes. We just want to be a resource to you. The partnership between State Farm and Retail Alliance is something that we take great pride in. And any way that I can be an asset to you, you've got my contact information, and certainly I'd be more than happy to help any of you at any time. And we're great about getting out of the office. I probably spend about 20-30% of my day out with clients. And so anything that we can do to help, we just want to be a resource for you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jim. Beth, sorry, did you have more?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank him for speaking, and that this will, I believe, that this will go on our Facebook page maybe, or
Yes, it'll be going on our Facebook page, YouTube, and I'll be sending emails out to everybody who attended or registered.
Great. So we really appreciate this. Be some good information to get out to our retail members. For those of you who are here, we will have the next Strive Loss Prevention on February 23rd. And Laura Yanka, she'll be talking about how COVID relates to HR. So tune in for that. And thank you for attending.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.